Another thing that I found, well, you know what? I'm not going to tell that story yet. I'm going to ask you to tell those stories. So we're going to do another small group one. So we're going to try once more to put you into those breakout groups. If we end up orphaning you, will you please send a chat message to me or to Tammy, or you can send it to everyone. We'll be able to see it because we'll try to move you around to the room. What we're going to do is put you in little rooms again. But what I want you to do this time is think to yourself about a time when you were new. So it doesn't have to be the 20 years ago party that story that I told you about when I went to that party. It could be something that's more recent. In this space, I think a lot of you are probably going to think about when you were new to dancing. It might be when you were new to going to events, or it might be if you are not a dancer, if you're just showing up for Capital Swing. My mom actually said she might join this call. She didn't. But if my mom was here or someone else who isn't a dancer, you can reach for another experience that was new for you, a time when you were new. And what I'd like you to do is tell the other people in your group that's a story about when you were new, someone who reached out to you and made that experience better for you. So who was it that made that experience of being new easier for you? I'm going to assume that the fact that you came back probably means something good happened. Can you think of a little anecdote or about a person? What did they do that made things better for you when you were new? And that's what I'm going to ask you to talk to your group about. You're going to have 5 minutes again. We're going to try to put you in groups of 4, but again, the technology is fighting us a little bit. So we're going to try to put you in a group of 4. You're going to have 5 minutes. Your question is someone who was good to you when you were new, and what did they do? So hopefully those were fun little conversations. I enjoyed meeting. I got to meet somebody new this time. I got somebody I already knew and somebody new. What I'd like you to do now is, again, we're going to use the chat to kind of report out, but I'd like you to only tell me in the chat box and I want you to think about, you can think about your own story, but I also love for you to see if you can capture from the other people's stories. What I want you to do is put the verb into the chat box. So for example, in the story that I told, I could put the verb cheer. I could put the verb welcome because I used it as a verb. I could put the verb saw. So it's the action word. What did somebody do? So it's not who, and it's not details. It's what was the verb? What was the action? Put those in the chat box, and we're going to look at, if you can, look at some other people's. I'll read some of them to you for those of you who can't see them. So it says asking, spent time, invited, welcome, personalizing, inclusive, introduce, spend time. Welcome. Apologies if I'm not reading yours out. I'm reading, the scroll is weird, so I'm reading some of the ones that I can get. So we're hearing lots of verbs that are, fear of mistake, interesting. Patience, introduce, capturing some of these little, invited, introduced, dance. What else? What else do people do? And again, see if you can retrieve it from other people's stories. Because sometimes when you tell a story, you focus on one piece, but someone else will hear something else that was happening in that story. Those of you who are coming back in, what we're doing is we're sharing out from the stories that we got. I asked you just for the action. What were the actions? What did people do that made your experience of being new more comfortable? I asked you a story of somebody who was good to you when you were new, and now we're typing back out the things that people did. So the things that you guys are writing down right now, like there's a big range of things that people did to help you feel better when you were new, or to help you, to welcome you in, to give you patience, to give you permission, to make you feel included in what was happening. So this is another reason why I started doing these newcomer welcome programs, is because I heard lots of people who come to our events who seem to have this mistaken impression that the only way to be important in our dance scenes is to win competitions, or the only way that you can truly be somebody who matters is to be one of the people who headlines at the event. And I'm going to respectfully disagree with that, because part of what I see is that for most of us, our experience is actually informed by the people who welcome us, the people who say hello to us, the people who drag us along to the thing. Those conversations that happen with all the regular people around you. I will tell you very concretely, once I started really working with the people who come for the very first time to one of our events, Most of the time, the people who make the biggest difference to them, who really give them the feeling that they belong, are the people who were new last time. It's not the people who are the all-star dancers. It's not the hired people. It's not the big deal people. It's not even me when I'm running the event and I'm like awesome to them. It's actually the person who was new last time. Or for somebody who's really shy, the person who makes the biggest difference to them is the other person who's like, I'm really shy too. I have a friend who only travels to events where she can have her whole group full of people who call themselves the introverts, and they room together and they give each other all kinds of introvert tips. Those are the people that make the big difference to you. Part of what I want for people when they join us in our community is to have a sense that you can be yourself, but you can also be valuable to the people around you by doing the things that come naturally to you. So some of us are really good at saying hello to everybody in the room. Other people are incredibly good dancers. Some other people are really fun to talk to. We also have people sitting around you who might be the exact person you want to talk to when you're having a horrible day and no one else understands. Those are all things that we offer to each other when we come to our dance events. And they are, by the way, a lot of those things are things that are still available to us today. Even during the pandemic, I've been really struck by the number of people who do those little bits of reaching out. Some of the same things you're talking about, the saying hello, people are still doing when we're in our pandemic time. It's hard because we're used to dancing together. We're used to doing that when we come in a room all together. And right now we're stuck with Zoom and we're modifying, we're trying to figure out how to make it work as we're doing this weekend. But all of those little touches, all of you who said hello to each other in the beginning of this call, those are the things that make everyone around you feel welcomed and feel like it matters that you're here. So those are the things that I think are really important and also really lovely parts of coming together in our dance event. I'm going to invite you, I'm going to recommend a resource to you if you like thinking about this piece that I'm talking about right now. There's a group called Move Together that I've been watching on Facebook. They have an initiative called Scan the Room, and they're really talking about that in a very concrete way. When we come back to dance events, thinking about the way that when we walk into a room, we scan the room and we look for who else is in this room. Is there anyone in this room who's sitting in a chair that hasn't had an opportunity to dance in a while? Is there anyone in this room who is older? Is there anyone in this room who is younger? Is there anyone in this room? We have, in the scene that I am, we'll get little clumps of college kids who don't necessarily know everyone else who's here. And so what they're talking about with Scan the Room is developing a habit of noticing the other people in this room. Some of you guys have been doing that on this call already in a beautiful way. So I'm going to give you that resource in a minute. I'll show it to you again, but it's called Scan the Room and it's from a group called Move Together. And I love the way they're talking about that. And I'm going to invite you to follow up on that. So when I do these newcomer welcome programs, we do a few different components, and I'm showing you some of these right now, but I also want you to think about these a little bit. So the first piece is this welcome and introducing ourselves to each other and building a little bit of a relationship with one another. So another reason why I started doing these programs was realizing that just knowing who the other people are in the room can be really important if something goes wrong. So I know some of us have had times when we're at our dances and somebody says something that doesn't quite sit right. Having somebody you can turn to and ask, what about that thing that just happened? How do I make sense of that? Can be really important. So our first session that we like to do is something where we have a time where we start to build relations. We put everybody in a room together, we get to know each other, we do some of the same things we just did today. We also do another session we call Social Dance Success, where we think about asking people to dance. What happens if people say no? That's a common experience if somebody says no. Sometimes it happens in a way that feels great because it feels like it's a friend who's telling you they didn't actually want to dance right now because they need to go to the bathroom or whatever. It's somebody who trusts you enough to give you a straight answer. Other times it can be difficult to get a no. So we go through some of those things, asking people to dance, dealing with no's. We talk about the code of conduct. We talk about boundaries. And we talk about keeping ourselves safe. We also talk about, well, let me ask this a different way. I don't have a card for it. But if I said to you, imagine you're dancing with somebody and something you're doing is making them uncomfortable. I don't know what it is. Like maybe it's something about the way you're holding their hand. Maybe it's something about something you said. If there's something that you're doing that's making them uncomfortable, would you want to know that that was happening? Would you want to know that that was happening? Just think about it to yourself for a second. So I will tell you, when I asked this in person, pretty much everybody says, yes, I'd want to know. Second half of that question is, why would you want to know? I'm going to anticipate that you'll probably say, because I don't want to do the thing. Yeah, I'd like to fix it. If I'm doing something that's making somebody uncomfortable, I'd like to not do whatever that thing is. So I had one time that I asked this question, and I had a guy who came to stand on the other side of the room. And he said, I don't want to know. And everybody else was really surprised. And I'll tell you, I've asked this a lot of times. The only time I've ever had somebody stand on that side of the room. And I said to him, okay, what's up? Can you tell me about that? Like, why are you standing over on the side of the room that says you don't want to know? And he said, because people tell me all the time that I'm hurting them on purpose. And I'm not. And I don't want to hear it anymore. And I'll tell you, when he said that, my heart dropped like a stone. And you should have seen the faces of the other people in the room. So first of all, that guy really needs to get with a teacher, because something's happening where he's ending up hurting his partners. But part of what was happening was the people that responded to him told him he was doing it on purpose. And he wasn't doing it on purpose. He didn't know how to fix it. But what he was doing was deciding that they were wrong and that they were against him. And that's not the most productive space to be in. So that guy, we need to get him with a teacher. But the rest of us, usually when you look around the room and everybody's saying, I want to know if I'm doing something wrong so that I can fix it. That's really how most of us feel about our dancing. We do have, for most of us, when we dance with someone, we want them to be happy. We want them to be comfortable. We want them to like dancing with us. And so building those skills that say, when I'm dancing with you, I'm going to treat you as my ally. If there's something that's not going right, we're going to figure it out, and we're going to make sure that we can both have a really good time in this dance. That's one of the skills that we work on. We also do some things with Jack and Jill for people who are competing to make sure that you feel comfortable and you feel like you're competing among friends. And a lot of what we do has to do with just dancing with each other, because that's really what we're trying to do when we come together in these event weekends, is have time to dance with one another. And so we build a lot of social dancing in. The last piece that I do with these newcomer programs, I'm going to ask you to think about for your own self. So the last piece that I always build in is asking our brand new people for their feedback. Asking all of our brand new people, what are you seeing? And that's something I'm going to ask you to do for yourself, both when we return to dancing, but perhaps right now. There's an effect called an outsider effect. Part of what happens is when you do something for a long time, you get really good at it, you get really comfortable with it, maybe you get to be the person who's running it. You start to have certain opinions about how everything goes. But if you're new, you might notice different things. And I think that's one of the things that's happening for a lot of us in the pandemic right now, is that we're noticing different things. We have a little bit of an outsider effect in our own lives and with our own dancing. And so it comes back around to that idea that for some of us, what we're realizing is that we really crave dancing with each other. Some of us are realizing that what we really want are connecting to one or two or three or maybe 100 other people. What does that look like for you? What are you noticing? What are the things that you value? What are the things that you're finding out as you go through this pandemic experience? So I'm going to stop talking right there and let you guys ask some questions. If you have questions, I know some of you are probably going to take a quick break before we go to Robert Royston, but I'm going to stick around for questions. I'm also going to do one other thing, which is, Tammy, before you put up a big screen, I'm going to do a screen share if that's okay, because I have some resources for you. I talked about one of them, which is the Move Together project. I have a few others that I'd like you to be able to see. So let me see if I can get this so that it's big enough.
It's sharing.
It's sharing, good. Here you go. Yeah, so here are some other resources that I think are important for a lot of the things that we talked about. I listed some of them here. And the last one on the list is the song that I played in the beginning because I love it and I thought you guys might want that. So I'm just putting that up on the screen right now. You don't have to write it down, but if you'd like me to send you this list, you can text the word magic to my phone number, which is at the top of the screen, or you can Facebook me or send me an email and I'll send you that list. So I'm going to stop talking right now and ask you for some questions. Thanks for joining me, you guys.
What's been the most rewarding thing for you about running the newcomer program?
The most rewarding thing for me personally, quite honestly, is I get to meet people as they come in. When I run the newcomer program, I get to meet almost everybody who comes into our events, and I get basically first dibs on the friends. And that sounds really maudlin to say it like that, but I love meeting the people who come through that program. And one of the things is with people who are brand new, they have this light and energy and enthusiasm that I think as you continue to do things, sometimes you lose that spark that says, this is what I love about this. Talking to people who are brand new, they get this, there's the stars in the eyes thing. You watch someone walk into an event who's never been there before and they say, are you kidding me? This many people in one room dancing together. And just being in the presence of that many dancers is something they find thrilling. And for me, it wakes back up that same feeling of gratitude and excitement and seeing things through their eyes. And also just being able to meet all of these really cool people. So I guess part of that comes around for me right now as we're in this pandemic pause and we're not dancing. I know part of what we're doing is we're building that same sense of being new into all of us. So we're going to walk into events post-pandemic and it's going to be 6 people dancing together and we're going to have that same like burst of, oh my gosh, people in a room dancing together. And that excitement and joy is going to be something that comes from all of us at that point. Other questions?
I just a comment.
Yeah.
Here. Yeah, I mean, I think what I remember from, I've been dancing for a long time. You know, you go to the dances and you go to have a conversation, but like someone asks you to dance, you go dance, and there's very little time unless you have dinner with people or whatever. So this opportunity we have right now is great. You know, we get to find out about each other a little bit more. So I really like that they added this little piece to the convention this weekend. Kay, you're doing an amazing job. And just getting to know some of the champions. I've gotten to know some of the champions through the virtual training that I never would have had that opportunity if it hadn't been, unfortunately, for this. You know, and supporting them and them being so appreciative of having their students that are there to help them through this, because this is devastating for them. So yeah, so good stuff's going to come out of this, and I can't wait to see a room of dancers.
I feel the same way. Can't wait to see that room full of dancers. Yeah,
Thanks,
I love that, Teresa, and thank you for adding that. And I think you are right. I mean, as hard as this has been, and as devastating as it's been, as you said, to some people's livelihoods and a lot of our social lives and things like that. At the same time, there are things which have grown and there are things that we've nurtured. And I will tell you personally, I have been so struck by the people who have taken, well, let me say it this way. You know how sometimes you walk into a room full of dancers and there are people who ask people to dance all night long, and they look around and they find the people who no one's asking to dance, and they're just asking and asking and asking and checking on people, and they're the person who will come up and say, I see you're changing your shoes. Do you want to do one more dance? It's okay if you don't. And I'm watching people do the same thing in the pandemic. People who have that energy, it's hard right now, but the people who have that energy to reach out to people and say, hi, I'm just checking on you. And then maybe even forgive those of us who don't answer right away, or who answer. I have had a habit lately of answering and saying, I would love to catch up. And then they say when, and I disappear and I don't answer. But the people who are taking that initiative to reach out to one another, I think that it's such a gift, and it shows up in our dancing. We know people do it in our ballrooms, but to watch people do it through the pandemic and have that sense of care for one another has been so striking and wonderful. It's one of those treasures that we're finding. I think we have time for one more question or comment. Who would like to share something? Robert Royston, I love you too, babe. Royston's up next for his to talk about the history of Jack and Jill's. I'm just going to scroll back through and wave to all of you guys who are on this call. If anyone wants to pop back in and talk, you are welcome to. Otherwise, I'm going to play us a song. I'll play it quietly, so if anybody wants to talk over it with a question or a comment, you can do that. Otherwise, I'm going to invite you to scroll through and do one more time of waving at the people who are on this call, sending your love towards them, using your chat function to say hello. Let's have a moment of greeting one another and having that one more moment of connecting to the real people. Even though we all look two-dimensional, we're not. We're all real people sitting on the other sides of these screens. And I want you to take that moment to be present with each of these people. Even if you don't know them, maybe you'll get to meet them after the pandemic. I'm going to try to put on a song while we do this. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. It's really been a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you, Kay.